Hello, and thanks for joining us on Breast Friends Cancer Support Network. My name is Michelle Beck. I am a two-time 9-year survivor of breast cancer. I work at a nonprofit in Oregon called Breast Friends, whose mission it is to ensure that women do not go through cancer alone. And when I have time, which is not very often, I write at a blog called I Never Liked Pink. So today I'm super excited and appreciative because my guest today is my first male survivor of breast cancer. So his name is Rod Ritchie. He is also a survivor of prostate cancer. So excuse my French, he's kicking cancer's ass. He is very active in the cancer communities, and we're going to talk today about what it feels like to be diagnosed as with breast cancer as a man and how he has become an activist for men in this community. I was introduced by Rod by another guest that I had, Karen Anderson, last year. She runs a foundation in Australia called Foundation 96, which connects survivors with practitioners literally around the globe for survivorship issues, exercise, nutrition, and all things like that. So be sure to check out her organization as well. So as you can see, Rod is also from down under, and you'll get to listen to his accent for the next hour, which I'm super excited about. So Rod, thank you so much for being here today and welcome. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and your cancer story.
Well, g'day, Michelle, and thanks for having me on the show because yeah, we do need to make sure the guys get a bit of airtime, and I think you'll find at the end of this show we'll know a bit more about men and breast cancer. So I was a book publisher, writer, and editor for many years, and I guess I'm very into the media. When the internet came along, I thought, wow, there's another opportunity here. The internet gave me a wider audience, and I built a lot of travel websites. I did a lot of search engine marketing, and so pretty savvy IT and pretty savvy with writing, editing, etc. And I guess I've just applied those skills when it's come to being an advocate. And I think the advocacy came along at a good time because I was thinking, well, I've had a great career here, and why don't I try and transfer the skills to letting men know about the disease more, because I found when I was diagnosed that I really was in the dark, and Dr. Google was my best friend. But since then, I have to say I've got a lot of other best friends, and to be truthful, most of the best friends are breast friends. They're women.
Well, there's so many of us out there. The statistics, as you very well know, 1 in 8 women are diagnosed, but for men, is it 1 in 300? Is that correct?
No, it's 1 in 860.
Oh, wow. Okay. See, I have cancer brain. I can't even remember simple numbers.
That's right.
Yeah. So it is. We're going to talk about all of these issues going forward. But how did you discover your breast cancer?
Well, I guess like a lot of men, I felt a lump because we're not in screening programs. We have to. We're on our own basically. I did have a family history, which I'll talk about later, but to find it myself, it was a lump. So I presented to the general practitioner, my family doctor, and she and me decided, well, maybe it's nothing. So come back in a month. Yeah, lumps there.
Yeah, it's nothing because you're a man, or that's like they tell some.
They're not used to. Yeah, yes,
They're not
Michelle,
used to it. And, like with the younger women who are coming in, they're like, oh, you're too young for breast cancer. Full for you. You're too male for breast cancer. Well, guess what? That's not true.
And yes, that's not true. And I think I sort of feel a bit for the doctors. They're busy people. And my doctor, I guess, had halfway through the consultation, you can see they're thinking about the next patient. And yes, it's such a rare thing. So, okay, so I turn up again in a month with a lump. I hadn't and as yet had a clinical examination by her. So again, I'm not on the radar. So fast forward another month, and I came along and I said, I want a scan. I want some sort of idea that lump is something. He said, okay. And so sent me off for an ultrasound, which is quite more common for men. Seems to be easier than getting between those plates on a mammogram, but thank goodness. So the ultrasound, I could see the technician's eyes were popping out of her head, and I thought, this doesn't sound so good. So a doctor came in and had a look, a radiologist came in and had a look, and then they said this will need biopsy. So a couple of days later, biopsy, and then I guess that's the diagnosis. Goes back to the doctor. She rang me. My general practitioner rang me. She said, "I'm sorry to say that you've got breast cancer."
And your head explodes. I've heard those words, and because it's, even though you go, you go get the testing and you're waiting, you're still not processing that this could possibly happen to you. I'm sure you mentioned you have a family history, so you were kind of like, ugh, but it's still, when you actually hear those words to yourself, it's devastating.
Yes, it is devastating, and it's as you probably understand also, you, once those words are spoken, you don't remember much afterwards. So when
It's
it
like
comes,
Charlie Brown speak, wah, 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 wah. And yeah, that's why for all early appointments, highly recommend you take someone with you to take notes, because
yeah,
I remember sitting in the office, just tears just rolling down my face, not listening to anything they're saying. And they've got diagrams and charts, and I'm like, I got nothing.
yeah, well, there you go. So you're right. Take someone along, especially when you get to medical oncology meetings and with radiologists and your general oncologist. I think you really do need to start switching on, because and I don't have to tell you this, but knowledge is power, and that's the way to get through it. I think the way to get through it is not to pretend it's not happening, but to understand that it is happening, and understand what treatments you're going to need, and try and work out your diagnosis and how that might transform into an appropriate treatment plan.
So what did your treatment end up being after they found the lump and you were properly diagnosed?
Okay, the treatment plan was neoadjuvant, and that's chemo before the surgery. So the skin was inflamed by the time I reached my surgeon, and she said, "No, no, that's not operable. We'll send you off to the oncologist, and she'll give you a plan for radiation, not for radiation, rather. She'll give you a plan for chemotherapy, and hopefully at the end of that, I'll come back and we'll have a look at it, and we'll do the surgery then." So the chemo was, chemo is chemo, but I had two different programs of chemo, and the Beck, which is the first one, and then the Taxol, which is the second round. So I think I had a total of 6, 2 lots of 3, maybe 6 over with 3 weeks in between. And that's chemo is sort of hard on the body, but it didn't seem to affect me that much, and I just tried to do as much physical exercise through it as possible. Once I realized that, well, you aren't going to sit in a chair for all that time, you better go, get a life. And I did. And so the chemo was then followed by the surgery. The surgeon said, "Great, the lumps, the inflammation's gone, the lumps are there, we can feel them, we'll get them out." So off to booked in for surgery, and that was just one-sided surgery. The mastectomy, not a lumpectomy, a mastectomy. Women all know it's to try and get as much breast tissue as possible. Men don't have as much breast tissue, so you think, oh, that's easier, but there was a fair bit to get there. It was a 3-hour operation, and while she was there, she thought, I'd better go for those lymph nodes. So she could see that perhaps a couple of them were infected. So she took all the lymph nodes as well at the same time as the mastectomy. So the pathology afterwards was 2 of the 23 lymph nodes were cancerous. There was not a pathological complete response. So she said, "Well, I think really radiation is the next step for you, because they want to clean up around." The margins were clear, but as I said, the pathological complete response wasn't there. So so then heading off to the radiologist. There's another woman professional there. Everything is women today, all these professionals. There's a whole industry out there looking after breast cancer patients, and it's great for a man when you think about
Yes.
it to have all that experience coming into play. And so the radiologist said, right, here's a plan. We'll do 33 daily treatments. That's five weekdays, but not weekends. And so, yeah, it seemed to be the easiest part of it. And then that was the end of that treatment. And the last 8 years, I've been on tamoxifen.
It's really interesting. In my brain, like if I really sit and process it, it makes complete sense to think that you're literally having the same type of chemo medication, the same procedures, on tamoxifen, which, those are all the things that women do. So it really just shows how much we need to get the information out there that men can get this, but they can actually be treated the exact same way, to eradicate the cancer from your body, which is so important. You mentioned earlier that you have a family history. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, my mother unfortunately didn't survive breast cancer beyond the initial diagnosis. I was 12 at the time, and I had 3 brothers. She had a mastectomy. I caught her coming out of the shower one day, and I thought, oh, that doesn't look too good. I didn't think much about it, and we didn't get to. Wasn't talked about in the family. You have to remember, this is back in 1962. There was no chemotherapy available. There was no radiation, or there was radiation. There was surgery and radiation, but the radiation was very severe. So she was treated with a mastectomy and with some radiation. And unfortunately, she lived a couple of years, and then so she passed away.
I'm sorry to hear that. I also have the family history from my paternal grandmother, and she was diagnosed 3 times. And, finally the last time, the metastasis. She lived a long life, but that was how I started experiencing breast cancer as a teen as well. So I've been through part of that. Now, as that process, when you were diagnosed, did you go through any type of genetic testing to see if this was something that came down through your DNA?
Yeah, good question. Men are usually sent off for genetic testing because, because they're men, I guess. And in my case, there was a family history. So we found had a BRCA1 mutation, but it was a variation of unknown significance, and really, we'll call that a VUS. The VUS is not clinically actionable. All those VUS results are stored away, and one day we'll find out there's there's some sort of genetic history, maybe with my variety, but there's no. I just had a family history. I don't have a proper genetic propensity to it. The mutation, as I said, was a VUS, and I guess as my breast surgeon says, well, look at the evidence. Your mother had it, you had it, so then you start to think about your kids and what you might have to, put sort of them in a screening program.
Have you? Do you have children who've done screening?
I have a son and a daughter. They're both in their 40s, and the daughter is on a regular screening program, and that's great. She hasn't had a genetic test because there's little point if she's got my genetics to get another VOS. So anyway, she's in a screening program, but my son, there's no screening program for young men. And I think that's one of the things I'd like to change. I'd like to think that if there's a family history, and when you think my kids have got 2 generations before them, and it's only my daughter that gets, the proper screening, get the letter each couple of years and goes in, has the MRI, I think she has, because she's got dense breasts. But for my son, he's on his own.
Yeah, it's very interesting how that all works, and having male screening programs would be wonderful. I have another woman who I've spoken with, and she went through breast cancer, and she is BRCA negative. Her daughters are BRCA positive, and it came from her husband's side. So her husband, they did testing on the husband because his sister also went through it, and his mother, and the BRCA came down from that side. So it's super important that people are educated to know that this is not just a woman's disease. And, so thank you for being here today and talking about this and being so open. What made you decide to really become an advocate and promoting awareness?
Well, as I said before, it was a good time for me. I was moving from the business I ran to looking perhaps to other things to do. And I thought, well, there's a bit of an opportunity here. I'm reading about breast cancer, but I'm not getting much about men and breast cancer. And I see a lot of pink around, and I'm thinking, well, that's great. There's awareness for women, but there's not the awareness for men. Now, people say, well, there's not many of you, and that's true. We're 1%, just 1 in every 100 people diagnosed with breast cancer is a guy. So I think there's a couple of things with men. They're a little bit loath to go to the doctor anyway. But
100%. I can tell you that with experience from my husband. He never wants to go for anything, and I go for everything now. Like I'm getting all the things done because I'm not having anything else go wrong with my 50-year-old body.
no, well, that's a good thing. And men also, there's just remember, there's a bit of a stigma attached to this because it's such a it's a perceived as a women's disease. In fact, it's genderless because, here we are, the men are here to tell you that you can get it as well. And I've always had this idea, and I've had a bit of success in this. When you look at a breast cancer charity website, instead of saying women this, women that, they're now saying people, and especially the ones here in Australia, I'm very happy to say have degendered the text. They're still very pink, but
we'll talk about that more later.
Yeah, we will, but they pay attention to the guys now. They've got a section on their website, on their blog, where their guys are welcome to come and talk about their disease. And it's really about breaking down the stigma attached to the disease, I think, for men. I think you'll get more men out there when it's regularized that it's a genderless disease, and they shouldn't feel embarrassed. It's just, it's another cancer you can get. Women can't get prostate cancer, but certainly men can get breast cancer. So there you go.
Yeah, we definitely need to normalize it more. We do need to take a quick break. So listeners, please stay with us. If you or your family need our services, please go to our website and look under our patient programs. You can also donate on our website or text BF Radio to 41444 to ensure that people do not go through cancer alone. Stay with us. We'll be back in a minute. Thanks for staying with us. I'm Michelle Beck, and my guest is Rod Ritchie, male. Survivor always sounds so funny to me. So a man impacted by breast cancer. So that's what we're talking about today. And we're really trying to normalize it and raise awareness because it does happen. It may be 1 in 100, but it's still super important to take care of. So Rod, we were talking about why you became an advocate before the break, but I know you've written various articles and publications and on websites, and you actually have your own website, malebc.org. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Perfect. And have you gotten feedback from other men who've been diagnosed? Because I'm sure they appreciate all the work that you're putting into this.
Well, yes, I think I'll talk later about a manifesto which a couple of us have put together to try and bring male breast cancer awareness to the front and to talk about extra issues. But the men, I've done a lot of counselling with men. I've been trained as a counsellor. I do telephone counselling, and look, I'm here to say not the majority of men who get breast cancer are interested in talking about it, but the ones that are very appreciative to hear from someone who's gone through the same process as them.
It makes all the difference in the world. I definitely found that when I found Breast Friends, it was walking into a group who got it. They understood, and it really helped my healing process and moving through the survivorship stage. Because they understood. I had very lucky, supportive friends and family, but until I got into a room with women, they're like, oh, I went through this and this is what worked for me. And I understand the crazy emotions you're going through. So I'm sure that the men who are reaching out and who do want to talk about it are very appreciative, and not all, obviously. I feel big generalization. Women tend to talk much more than men about things like this, but I hope that what you're doing can really help that process.
Yeah, well, me too. And you're right. Men don't talk about their health issues. Men tend to come at issues when they really are so astounding that you better go do something quick. And that's, unfortunately, with breast cancer, means you've got a larger tumour to deal with, and yes, often later diagnosis equals poorer prognosis. And I think that's enough reason in itself for me anyway, to keep my advocacy going, and without trying to overplay what one person can do. I think many people can do a lot of things, and so that's why I'm happy to appear and talk about this disease as a male disease as well as a female.
Definitely. And let's talk about research, because we hear about research and all this money is donated to Susan G. Komen and the other foundations out there. But how much research actually goes into male breast cancer?
Very little. Now, that's another thing that we tend to get on our high horse about, some of us guys. But I hear from researchers and say, look, there's not enough of you to make a cohort that's going to make sense. But I say, look, just enroll men, put the results aside, and after a while you'll end up with a lot of data. If you can't get 100 guys and 900 women, if you want to use that sort of ratio, then at least do something for the men, because now there's nothing wrong with this necessarily, but we're treated on research based on women. Look, we all do have estrogen, and men obviously not much. Women have a lot more. Men have testosterone. Women don't have much, etc., etc. But it just means a lot, I think, to men once they get into a study to see some results. And I've got a great collection of studies that have actually looked at men, and I'm publishing them on my website. But I'm just keen that there be more research, that I do get the researcher's point of view as well.
Yeah, because it's really all about getting more research done, more awareness. Because yes, 1 in 100 doesn't seem like a lot of men that you can find to put in a study, but that's still men that you can put in a study. You have to start somewhere. And if we don't start talking more about it, nothing is going to change. So that's why people like you are so important. You mentioned estrogen, and it's not something that we normally think about for men. For myself personally, I had the most treatable cancer, which is ER/PR positive, so estrogen, progesterone positive, HER2 negative. And so my cancer fed on estrogen. First time and the second time, it was like, take all my estrogen. So I finally had my ovaries removed. I'm on the aromatase inhibitors to stop further estrogen production. But you don't think about that as men. So do men have more like triple negative types, or is it still feeding on the estrogen that's in your bodies?
Men have exactly what you have and I have. HR positive, HER2 negative, the most treatable. Mm-hmm. So that's a great thing for men, in that the treatments are the most successful, and so we're lucky in that sense. But there are triple neg men and there are triple positive men, and it can change if you have a recurrence. And yep. I guess there's a lot of factors involved there, but in that sense, men are quite lucky. And for men, the tamoxifen works very well, especially for older men. There's not as much, there's not the hot flushes and the night sweats and that sort of thing that a lot of women, particularly premenopausal women, have. But so in many ways, I think we're sort of lucky. I've been on the tamoxifen for 8 years now, and really, it's minimal side effects. I'll probably be happy to get off it, but it's like a security blanket. You talk about peanuts. Well, who's got the security blanket here?
Yeah, I understand that. Do they have you on the 10-year regimen?
Yes. Well, I'm 8 years, so I guess I'm going to 10. I've done okay. 5. So we'll just, I'll certainly get back to you at 10 years and, let you know.
Yeah, believe me, I'm counting down the next 5 years because I'm the poster child for side effects. But as someone asked me today that I haven't spoken with in a while, like, how are you feeling? How's your health? I'm like, my health is good, no evidence of disease, but my side effects are awful, but I'm still here. So yeah. You know what? Yes, I can consider that a good day.
But a lot of women, well, you said you're on aromatase inhibitors, not tamoxifen, or you're on both, or what?
I was on tamoxifen my first time around. So my first time I was diagnosed at 41. I was premenopausal, lumpectomy, radiation, tamoxifen, and all the side effects. But for some reason, it didn't. My cancer basically said F you, and I had a new primary occurrence while on the tamoxifen in my other breast. So at that point, it was like, full bilateral reconstruction, full hysterectomy, oophorectomy, take all the things, and the aromatase inhibitors.
Okay, and the aromatase inhibitors, how do they compare to tamoxifen for you?
Worse feeling, more side effects. Yeah, they're stronger, as from what everything says. They're better at prevention, but they are stronger and they eat away at my bones. I fractured a vertebrae last August, and it didn't heal well because it eats away at your bones. So, but I do everything I can. I take supplements. I try to exercise as much as I can, and I'm here. So that's, I consider every day a good day.
Yeah, that's good. I'm really pleased to hear that.
Even with the pain. So thank you for asking. You had mentioned something earlier that you actually had a mastectomy on one side. And so I imagine, I don't know how large was your tumors?
Tumor was 2 centimeters.
Okay. So, but when they're taking a lot of the breast tissue around that, is it common, or did you have any type of reconstruction, or do you just have the area that you can tell that there was obvious surgery there and removal?
You can tell there's obvious surgery, but I have to say that I know quite a lot of men with breast cancer, but I only know a couple that have had reconstruction. It's not considered important enough, I think. I guess, I do get the difference between, for a female to have breasts removed is like a huge thing, as a sort of sexual thing. For a man, they think, oh, he's just going to look a bit lopsided, but so what? I think that's changed. I'm now 8 years out from the mastectomy. I think nowadays perhaps a man might be asked if we want some reconstruction. It shouldn't be the biggest operation in the world anyway, should it? But
right.
I didn't want any more surgery. I was quite happy. The surgeon in my case wanted to take the second breast as well. I said, no, that's the canary in the mine. And but after listening to you, I think, oh wow. But I mean, that could have been worse for you if you hadn't had another breast there. Well, it might have gone anywhere in you.
Exactly. I call myself a cancer unicorn because I've had it twice. They were both cut fairly early. I'm very lucky, and no chemotherapy. So yeah. I know a lot about it just from talking to everyone, but it's, everybody's journey is different. Even though we're walking the same path, we still take different steps.
Yeah.
So, but that's, I think, why it's so important to share. You were talking about the canary in the mine. Is it common for men to be diagnosed metastatic as for women? For us,
yeah.
I so many women I know, bones, lungs, liver, brain, etc. It just goes everywhere sometimes.
Yes, it is common, de novo diagnosis. And over the years, I've unfortunately known a lot of people that haven't made it for that reason alone. I know people that have metastasized, from early stage. I've had friends that have died as well, and I think it's a dreadful thing when you start off with stage 4 breast cancer. It's a much different road, and most of the women that I'm dealing with on, say, Twitter, most of the people have breast cancer, but they're all women. So I have to say that have go through a hell of a lot, and they're the people I really admire. Very much admire those women that are especially going on, telling about their experiences, writing. I could name names, and you'd probably know them as well. And they're just fantastic people, and I think they give everyone hope. But it's terminal. It's not called terminal stage for nothing. And they're the people that we all should be helping as much as possible.
Definitely. I will say that we don't use terminal as much in the language, trying to possibly just be positive about it. And I do know many women who were diagnosed metastatic years and years ago, and their oncologists have found the right combination of medications, and they're doing well. So very hopeful, but realistic. Yeah. I think that's kind of
terrific. I agree with you there. That is really good. I know people on their 6th and 7th and 8th line of treatment now. That's only because of research, and I think people will take treatment as long as the side effects aren't worse than the life that they're living, and it's fantastic. Yeah, I know people that that have been on one line of treatment for 7 years. I mean, how good is that?
Yeah, you can't beat that. And, kudos to the people who are out there doing the research, no matter who they're doing it on, so we can find these new regimens. So you were diagnosed 9 years ago, you said?
8 years ago.
8 years ago. Do you remember what it's like to be diagnosed? What can friends or family do for a man who's been diagnosed? So many people don't know what to do in general for a woman. And, this is thought of as a woman's disease. So I imagine some people may get very awkward and they don't know what to say.
Yes, look, I'm sure that's the case. I mean, because I sort of came out, if you like, very early on, people know, oh, Rod's got breast cancer, but a lot of men keep it secret. But I have to say that there's so much help out there. I mean, men have partners and partners have sisters and sisters have mothers and grandmothers, like you're talking about, with family history. And when you realise the genetics of it, and you have to keep pointing out that males carry half the genetic load, if you like. So you can catch it through your family, through your mother's side, through your father's side, come down, as you were talking about, from maybe your grandma. And you don't just look for breast cancer, you look for ovarian cancer, you look for prostate cancer, and you look for a lot of cancers that can still give you some indication that you might be, a family history doesn't just always apply to breast cancer. So the men have to just understand that, they've got it. I'm a bit tough on them now, and I usually find they're quite responsive. And once they know people that are doing okay with it, then I think that's a big lift for them.
Other than family history, are there other risk factors for men?
Look, there are, there's a lot that's unknown about breast cancer diagnosis. Really, the hereditary aspect is like 10 or 12%. So we've got nearly 90% of people getting breast cancer for no good reason. It's more common in Western countries than in the Eastern countries, and that in itself might lead to diet. There's environmental factors. It's really quite tricky, and I think the fact they haven't got a cure for it means they really don't know why people are getting it. Quite often, it's and you know what? I read a really interesting thing, and I put this on Twitter the other day. Someone was saying, "Oh, you've got breast cancer. You must have done something wrong." Well, guess what? Bad luck is a part of getting breast cancer. There was a study and it was reported in Scientific American, and I used to draw people's attention to that. Bad luck.
Yeah, I know many women who are fit and healthy and eat right, and they've done all of the right things and they still get it. I mean, for me, I was not as fit and I love to eat. But one of the things they say for women is if you have not breastfed by the time you're 40, that increases your occurrence. I had my son at 40. So, I was a late mother. So, but you never know. And it could just be bad luck all the way around. It's not that anyone ever asked for this, but it's also not because you've done something or didn't do anything. It's just, it's bad luck.
Yeah. Well, I think also however you've got it, if you've got it, then really you've got to, work your way around all the whole treatment and things and the side effects and all that. You just have to get on with it. I mean, it becomes immaterial how you got it.
Exactly right. You can be angry for a while at the cancer, but then sometimes you just have to move on and worry about the treatment and then life beyond. So we are going to take another quick break. Please stay with us. Listeners, if you would like to be a guest on my show or send me your warrior story that I could read on one of those episodes, please email me at michellebeck@breastfriends.org. Plus, we're always looking for sponsors where we can highlight you or your business. So please email me for that as well. So stay with us. We'll be back in a minute. Thanks for staying with us. I'm Michelle Beck. My guest is Rod Ritchie, gentleman impacted by breast cancer. I don't know why, for some reason, I can't get the words out of my mouth today. So Rod, really quick, we'll come back to it, but what is your Twitter handle and where can our listeners find out more information about you?
Okay, the Twitter hashtag is @malefitness, one word, MALEFITNESS, male fitness.
And that's also on Facebook, correct?
Well, Facebook, no, I'm my own name. use for Facebook, and I'm
Twitter.
on some. Yeah,
Got it.
I'm on breastcancer.org, which everybody should know. That's the site that's been around since cancer was invented. I'm travel text there, travel text, one word.
Got it. Thank you.
And I'm the only guy posting there, and there's 120,000 members. Now go figure that out. I mean, where are the guys? They're gone. And I do know what's happened. They were more there when I started years ago, looking for help and helping others. And I think it's because social media has come along, Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and everything. There's so many more platforms. And I think younger people like those other platforms, to get on. Have you used breastcancer.org?
I haven't for support. No.
Yeah,
So,
but you're aware.
Definitely. So
Good.
let's talk about one of the things I did want to ask about was education. So that obviously breastcancer.org is a good place, and there are other things, but are there any specific places you would recommend men go to for education and early detection information?
Well, there's a couple of good Facebook sites. One of them is the Male Breast Cancer Global Alliance, which I'm a member of, a board member. There's Male Breast Cancer Coalition, which is another Facebook site. But really, I think you get a lot of information on Twitter. If you go on there and look for the hashtag BCSM, which is Breast Cancer Social Media, they have a weekly meeting. It's been monthly lately, but you can go there. You don't even have to participate much, but you can learn a lot each time. I think it's 9:00 Sunday evening Eastern time in the States, Monday evening Eastern time in the States, and you can check them out.
I'm not familiar with that. Thank you. And we've kind of briefly touched on this, but since men are not at any kind of a regular screening process, I imagine that men are diagnosed later stage with poor diagnoses or poor prognosis, I guess. Is that the case?
Well, that's generally the case. That it's look, it's a bit like women. If you get early treatment, you've got a much better chance of surviving and not going to metastasis. But as I said before, there are men that, for whatever reason, either their medical team hasn't picked it up or they've been loath to present themselves for medical assistance, and so they do have a poor prognosis.
And I imagine just fear is really prominent out there, because if you are male and you get diagnosed, since it's so much looked at as a women's disease, that you may not know where to turn for support or resources. So say a new gentleman who's diagnosed comes to you, what would you say to them?
I'd say, first of all, get as much help as possible. Go to the charity websites that are going to have blogs where you can talk, hopefully to another man, but be prepared to listen mostly to women, because they're the ones that are more likely to speak out. And you said that before, women talk about things, men don't.
We talk about everything to the nth degree.
Yeah, no, that's good. I like that. And I think it's straightforward and more honest to just come out and say what you think about it. And I wish more men were like that. But I think just look past the pink. We'll get the awareness levels up there. You've got it, deal with it, learn about it, get the best treatment possible. And and keep yourself fit, diet, exercise, the sort of things we all should be doing anyway.
Perfect. Well, let's get to the pink issue. I was looking at your website, malebc.org, and there's a tagline at the top which reads, "Male breast cancer, put some blue in the pink." Does all the pink make you feel like an outcast, or how does it make you feel?
No, look, I get the pink, Michelle, and when I first started out, I was really against the pink, and one of the first things I was trying to get was to say, all right, have a pink logo, but put a little blue dot on it. Just put a little bit of blue, and then people go, WTF, blue, and then they go, oh, that's because men get it as well. But nowadays, I'm fighting a losing battle against the pink, I think, and As long as the charities and the government websites are very upfront about its genderless nature, I count that as more important. And there's things that I want for men, which I'll talk about if you ask me about the manifesto.
That's my next question.
Okay. So the pink is a thing. We've got to get around it. I get it that it's what the pink's for, but it's not really good. I think the charities just can't help themselves. It's such a fundraiser. The fact that it's a women's disease, the fact we're an inconvenient truth. I have to tell you, they say, what do you mean you're a bloke with breast cancer? What's that all about? So then the men just go back into their shell, and that's too bad. But it's up to the charities to say, well, there is some blue in the pink. Here's what's happening, and I've had some successes, and I might email you some of that information.
Please do. I would love to post more information about that. Well, also there's a number of women who don't identify with the pink, who they do not appreciate the cancer culture that comes with the pink washing and Pinktober, and it doesn't work for many women. My social media handle is I never liked pink. I saw that. I noticed that. Not a pink girl growing up, and I would have things here and there to support my grandmother and others, but it wasn't my thing. And I will say that I did embrace it once I was diagnosed, because it made me feel powerful and part of a group. So for me, that's what it brought. If you could see my desk right now, it's covered with ridiculous amounts of pink stuff. But it's not for everyone. And I understand that. And it especially shouldn't have to be representative for the men who are going through this as well. So let's talk about next. I now get the play on words. The manifesto. Tell me about that.
Manifesto. There it is. Not a womanifesto. This is a manifesto.
Yes, the manifesto.
So it's just a few lines, and if I'm looking down, I'm reading from it, so you can put up with me. So it was a few years ago. My friend Rob, another male breast cancer survivor who's unfortunately no longer with us. We thought let's everyone that's starts a revolution needs a manifesto. So this is what we were asking breast cancer groups to do. Just a few simple points, like reduce the sexual stereotyping of breast cancer as being exclusively a female disease. Now that shouldn't be hard. That should be doable. Next was to include a splash of blue amongst the pink to raise awareness of male breast cancer. That's what we've spoken about. Then in October, it's 30 days there for women. How about having one day where men are mentioned, a day for male breast cancer? So have a day to publicise male breast cancer in October. So then there's, you talked about research, but here's one. How about putting aside 1% of the funds, and these are enormous funds, how about putting 1% of the funds for researching men with breast cancer? Now that doesn't seem pretty outrageous, does it? I don't think so. Then another thing is advocate for a screening program. Now, this isn't a screening program for all men. That'd be dumb. It's a screening program for men that are at risk, and men that have genetic propensity or family history. Why not get these men, and particularly younger men, into a screening program? And it wouldn't be expensive. It would be, again, we're trying to catch 1% of the new cases, but because men never get screened, then there's the problem. I think that's the problem solved. That wouldn't be too hard. Another thing is to provide inclusive imagery, instead of just, put the odd man in here and there, and again, WTF, there's a man, and then people go, that's because. A couple more. Build a sense of importance and belonging within cancer support groups for male breast cancer patients and their carers. In other words, be inclusive. Here we are, take us on board. That's another reasonable thing. And most women do, I have to say. This was written a few years ago. A lot of these things have come to fruition, so I'm not trying to gnash my teeth about these. Second last one, provide easy access and relevant up-to-date information for men that is prominently displayed and accessible by all groups. In other words, have the information there, go research it, put it up. And then promote breast cancer research and development funding programs, which include men and the male experience. So that's the manifesto.
I appreciate everything that you said there, and I would love it if you would send that to me so we can actually put that up in conjunction when this airs, because it's not hard. The hardest thing really is I would say the research funding. There's such, I know for metastatic breast cancer, it gets like 3% of the research.
Yeah, that's nuts. That's
And
nuts.
that is, it's taking people every day, more and more people. So
Yeah.
there needs to be some reorganization of how those funds are used. But that I would say that is the most challenging thing on there from what I see. Everything else, it seems a lot of common sense. I mean, the screening programs, yes, that takes some nods from the higher ups and the organizations, but it shouldn't be that hard.
Agree.
So you've got your manifesto, and that was written with your late friend Rob, and thank you for sharing that. So did he pass away from metastases?
Yes, he did. Yep. I went to see him in the week before he died. It's a bit out of state for me, but it was a trip I wanted to make, and we just had a good yarn and yak about everything, and he did a little video for me, and his last words were, to me anyway, not to his family, were "fuck cancer," and I think that's a great hashtag.
Yes. There is a brewery here in Oregon, close to where I'm at, called Silver Moon Brewing. And every year they do the F Cancer beer campaign. So you can submit your names on it, which we're actually doing right now. And
Very
so,
good. Yeah.
and so this year they're doing different colored cans, multicolors, not just,
Yes.
they're not doing just pink.
Yeah.
But it's kind of fun to have your name on the F Cancer beer cans. So
yeah.
yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, the F Cancer, it's one of my favorite words, so I use it. It's very expressive. So we only have a couple minutes left. Tell us, I know you just read the manifesto, but other ideas or really anything that comes up on how the breast cancer community at large, not the rule makers or the money pushers, how can they help degender breast cancer?
I think the breast cancer community is very receptive to the fact that men are going along similar treatment paths, and I think they understand they have a lot of the issues that women themselves are dealing with, and they're very supportive. So I don't see any problem from women with breast cancer. They're our allies. They're the best people. I think the problem is more for people. Perhaps if you go to work and you've been away for a few weeks or something, you've taken sick leave, and then they say, "What's wrong with you? You've had breast cancer." Well, I think that's a shock then, and that the stigma attached to that. And people often say they've had chest cancer, for instance. Now that's a good one, but chest cancer.
I know of a celebrity who has said he has chest cancer, and you do you, but let's actually make it accurate. It is breast cancer, and that's the only way, by normalizing it and getting rid of the stigma, that it is not just a female disease. Yes, 90% are female, but there are that 10% out there who are men, and they need the same amount of support.
Yeah, 1%, Michelle. 1%.
1%. Sorry, I can't do math. I've never was able to do math, and now now after cancer, like my brain is like, wee. So I have a lot of squirrel moments. So thank you for correcting me on that. Gosh, we are about out of time. So listeners, remember, you can follow Rod at Male Fitness on Twitter, or go to his website at malebc.org. So this is a full-time job for you. And what is your main driving force?
Look, just having some success in any area that I spoke about on the manifesto, just helping other guys that have got their knickers in a knot about it. There's many moments of satisfaction, and all them all, so I don't have to talk to you about that, Michelle. But no, it's very rewarding, and I think it's actually keeps me going. Yeah, it just takes my mind off myself.
Perfect. Rod, thank you so much for sharing your story and all the amazing work you're doing to normalize and degender male breast cancer. And it's super important. So please send me the manifesto so I can post that. So thank you. Listeners, if you or a loved one need our services, please go to our website, breastfriends.org, and check out our patient programs. You can donate on our website or by texting BF Radio to 41444. Our show is available on many platforms, Voice America's Health and Wellness channel, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to nominate yourself to be a guest or to send me your story, I can be reached at michellebeck@breastfriends.org. We'll be back next week. And until then, remember, we rise by lifting each other.